Yeah, it's tough. You work so hard for seasons and moments like these. So whenever you get hurt and it ends it early, it's tough to handle. But that's part of the game. Been through it before, so just got to grind it out.
Man, what a time for the Cincinnati Bengals, especially for Joe Burrow. It is clear that this wrist injury is so severe that it's going to keep him off the field for the remainder of the season. And without him on the field, there's no way that the Bengals are going to make the playoffs this year. So pretty much season's over for them. With that being said, there is a whole lot of concern regarding their future with Joe Burrow and how it can affect the roster going forward. There are key players on this roster that may leave after this season, and with Joe Burrow issues regarding the O-line is bringing a lot of Andrew Luck vibes. And in this video, we finna discuss the uncomfortable truth about this team. Hey man, say man. This is the A-Man Show, back at it again for more content. Make sure y'all subscribe. I post NBA and NFL content. Turn on post notifications so that way y'all don't miss anything. Anyways, stay tuned and let's get it. So in week 10, in a Thursday night game between two division rivals in the Bengals and the Ravens, in the second half, Burrow hits one of his receivers at the goal line, but that led to him visibly grimacing on his throwing arm, specifically his wrist. And looking at the sideline, the guy clearly could not throw with that arm. After that game, it was reported that Joe Burrow had a torn ligament on his wrist, and he will be sat for the remainder of the season. This is the second time of his career that this man sat out for the remainder of the season, and given the wear and tear that this dude had endured with an horrible offensive line, is starting to have concern for his career as a whole. I was scrolling on Instagram, and I came across this one ESPN stat that says that Joe Burrow was sacked 148 times in 52 games than Andrew Luck had with 115 in 55 games. That is scary, especially to add the fact of what Andrew Luck had to go through. In Luck's playing career, he was sacked 2 times per game, and all that contributed to major injuries by the start of 2015, and since then, the guy will only play 38 games in the next 4 seasons. It is clear that this man could not sustain a long-lasting NFL career, all due to the incompetence of the front office refusing to address the issue of getting him an offensive line much earlier. And then we fast forward to this season, and we're literally seeing another Andrew Luck, but worse in Joe Burrow. In his rookie season, guy was played with an awful offensive line as he was sacked 3 times per game up until he torn his ACL against the Commanders. Next season, Joe Burrow will put up an MVP caliber year in 21 while being the most sacked QB in the NFL. Hell, even in the divisional round against the Tennessee Titans, the guy had a superb performance despite getting sacked 9 times, which is a single playoff game record. And then on to the Super Bowl, the guy was sacked 7 times in that game as well. Based on all the shit that Joe Burrow had to go through, the front office at least tried to address the issue with the O-line by signing Alex Kappa and Leo Collins in the offseason, but that only helped a bit. Joe Burrow got sacked 41 total times last year, which makes him the 6th most sacked QB in the league. And what's worse, Collins and Kappa, their 2 best linemen, will go down in injury at the end of the season and will miss the entire postseason. So Joe Burrow had to roll with an absolute anus O-line going to the playoffs. Aside from the Bills game, Burrow was sacked 4 times against the Ravens and 5 against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And then going to the season, the man was sacked 3 times per game despite adding guys such as Orlando Brown on a $64 million deal. They still had issues protecting Joe Burrow. And if Joe Burrow were to play the full season, he would at least get sacked 45 times. And the fact that this man was sacked more times in less games than Andrew Luck is honestly scary, especially for Bengals fans. You can tell from the beginning to now that all the sacks that he endured is catching up to him. For example, in training camp, the man strained his calf during the scrimmage, and then in the first 5 games of the season, he clearly wasn't himself because the man was playing hurt all this time. And this is on the Bengals for not sitting him out for several games so that he can heal properly. Once the man started getting back to his old self and the Bengals started to roll, Joe Burrow tore his ligament on his wrist and he will sit for the remainder of the season. From being the first overall pick of the 2020 draft, the man became everything that the Bengals envisioned him to be. Joe Burrow has accomplished the most out of any other QB in this franchise, getting them to their third ever Super Bowl appearance, putting up MVP caliber numbers in his 2 full seasons with the Bengals, and I fear that this man will retire way sooner than expected. I mean, retire before age 30 if he continues to take on this beating for the next couple of seasons. And if that happens, he may not ever win an MVP or even a Super Bowl. And we're going to treat Burrow as an Andrew Luck 2.0, a what-if player. And mind you, the Bengals actually tried to address the issues of getting him help, unlike the Colts with Andrew Luck, where they went ahead and addressed the O-line issues in the last second, when Luck was already too banged up. But still, the Bengals didn't do a good job getting him an O-line. 2019 11th overall pick Jonah Williams has been extremely underwhelming as a tackle for this team. La'el Collins and Alex Kappa didn't even do enough to protect Joe Burrow. And then with Orlando Brown, the guy clearly does not deserve this contract based on how poorly he's been playing so far. So since the Bengals are not making the playoffs, what is the trajectory of this franchise going forward? How will they address this issue with the O-line, and most especially how they address the wide receiver issue? Because after this year, T. Higgins is going to be a free agent, and in the next seasons, it's really uncertain if they're going to keep him for the long term. Because sure, they can franchise tag him for next season, but as the cap hit for Burrow's contract worsens, they may not give him enough money that he wants, and he could leave in the next few seasons. To add, in the next few seasons, Jamar Chase will be due to a contract extension, so that can increase the chances of T. Higgins leaving. Aside from Chase and Higgins, Boyd has been mid all year and never was the same guy that he was in previous seasons, and the rest of the receiving core is looking pretty shit. Joe Mixon will be a free agent. This, along with Joe Burrow's massive contract they have to deal with for the next several seasons. Hopefully they can try to restructure his contract in order to sign more key players, especially on defense. Defensively, they have been disappointing all year, especially losing Jesse Bates in free agency. Their run defense has been the biggest issue as they allow teams to average 5 yards per carry on them, which is awful. They also allow 136 rushing yards per game, which is 30th in the league. Their pass defense has been shit, also allowing 249 passing yards per game, which ranks them 25th in the league in pass defense. And I know stats do not tell the full story, but those do not lie. The D-line for this team, especially DJ Reader, has not been getting it done as far as them getting stops in the run, and the secondary has been actually the major concern aside from Cam Taylor-Britt, because these guys were getting eaten up at the run as well. They actually have a talented enough defense, but as far as them on the run, they have been so undisciplined. The front office must address these issues going into this offseason. Of course, they need to continue to improve on the offensive line through the draft and or free agency. As of right now, they have the 18th overall pick in this coming draft, so they really need to capitalize on fixing the interior of the O-line. But other than the draft, it's going to be hard for them to really sign key free agents with Joe Burrow's big ass contract if they don't act now, because they're currently in the top 5 with the most cap space. They really need to act now with their roster before T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are due to contract extensions. So looking at Burrow's career, the Bengals front office really need to do whatever they can to convince Burrow to keep on playing this game, because he can't keep on dealing with the beating over and over again, all due to a shitty line. I said this 2 years ago that in order for Joe Burrow to succeed, he will need an O-line, and going to the 2021 draft, they will need to select Penei Sewell at the tackle position, but instead went with Jamar Chase with the 5th overall pick. By the way, I don't mind the pick whatsoever, but I do think they should have gone with Sewell because the O-line was the biggest concern of this team back then. You already have Tyler Boyd, who back then was a capable Pro Bowl level receiver, along with T. Higgins. Hell, in the second round, they should have selected Amon St. Brown with the 46th overall pick of that year's draft. Not only Burrow will have a receiving core, but also a guy like Penei Sewell. It came with a cost where Burrow was getting sacked at an historic rate. And now with all the beatings that Burrow endured for the last 2 seasons, the man is paying the price by dealing with these injuries. And it's only going to get worse if the Bengals don't truly fix those issues with this roster. Burrow is too good and too valuable to have his career wasted and shortened due to the inadequacies with the front office. So anyways, guys, I'm worried about Joe Burrow's career. I'm worried about the career path that he's heading towards based on all the shit that he went through regarding the issues with the O-line. And if the front office does not fix these issues somehow in some way, then most likely we will see Joe Burrow potentially retire before the age of 30. In this situation they're in right now, the future for the Bengals is uncertain. And that's a video. What are your thoughts on Joe Burrow? Is he on the career trajectory similar to Andrew Luck? Let me know in the comment section below, and make sure y'all subscribe for more NBA and NFL content in the future. Turn on post notifications, and that is all. Stay litty. This is the A-Man Show. Sign out.